Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another edition of the Useless Aggression podcast. I'm one of your hosts, James, and joining me, as usual, it's Henry.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, not bad. How you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. Slowly, week 4 of lockdown now. So, starting to go slightly more insane. But we still got. In fact, wrestling was deemed it was deemed an essential thing in Florida the other day. So at least we've got that to keep us busy.
I don't know if that technically means we've become essential in Florida. That was the way I looked at it.
The people in Florida rely on us right now. I think to produce these
Obviously, yeah.
podcasts. But there's been a lot going on in the wrestling world, despite all of this. Despite the no crowd.
Yeah, and it's not all been good.
Yeah, so obviously with what's going on and them being now deemed an essential thing and they can keep running, they obviously need to save money in some places because they're not making it in shows. So they've, as you probably have all seen all over social media, if you haven't seen, I'll be amazed, but they've made hefty, hefty cuts to the roster. Something in the world, and backstage stuff as well, isn't it? Is it something like 40 odd percent of the staff or something that they've got rid of?
Yeah, I've heard 40% of the staff have gone. Some of them have been placed on furlough. I believe like the office staff are on furlough and the producers they've released are on furlough from what I've read, but the rest of those have been cut.
And there are some surprising names in there. I mean, obviously, it's not uncommon for them to have cuts. And obviously, if I do cuts every year and you lose people like JTG, you almost forget. Sometimes these lists are actually really interesting. So you read them and they're like, "Oh my god, that guy's still on the ring." But there's been some pretty big names in this one, like some pretty sad losses. I mean, obviously the big one that jumps out to everyone, at least to me, is Rusev, who obviously is due to come back really from injury, wasn't he? Any time now. In fact, people were speculating he might have come back at Mania, but he's just now gone. And other people as well, like Heath Slater's on the list. I mean, obviously he's not a big name in terms of main event scene, but like he's a staple of the sort of jobbing world. And obviously the OC as well. There's loads of big names. We've got the whole list here anyway to go through.
Yeah, we'll go through and kind of talk about where we think they'll go and whatnot. Going back to like the cuts in the first place, I mean, I've read quite a lot of reports about this because the internet are angry. That's definitely the vibe we've been getting. And it's not unusual that WWE do cuts this time of year. Like when WrestleMania's come and gone, they're getting ready for the next year. They kind of look through the roster and they get rid of people they deem that aren't essential. However, I think the reason they're coming under fire now is firstly, this is a lot more cuts than we're used to. Like sometimes they'll probably cut like 10 people and that's it. They've
And
cut
it's
a
mostly
lot of
developmental
people.
talent as well. It's normally dead
Yeah,
weight or developmental guys they cut.
and then the other thing is, so one of the things I read is actually it's not necessarily about them making a profit because they're smashing it in terms of their profits. One report I read indicated that WWE are actually were on course for almost record profits, and obviously that looks good to investors and whatnot. So to maintain their record profit levels, that's why they've cut so many people because it keeps their profit levels so much higher that it helps with investors, which obviously isn't great because you've made those people go out of the job. And I think then on top of it again, the other thing is the timing because it's not as if any of these guys can go and work on the indie scene. So usually you'd compete, at, for WWE, you get cut. They might have a clause in your contract where you can't compete for another place for 90 days, and then you can go straight into the indies, and you'll probably make quite good money off the indies, even as a lower tier WWE superstar. You're an instant attraction.
The obvious one now as well is TNA used to be quite an obviously AEW, especially as people such as the Revival are rumored to be going, or places like New Japan as well. There's a big market out there. I think like
Yeah,
the world kind of forgets that the wrestling world is bigger, and depending who you ask, better than WWE.
but at the minute you can't get anywhere. I mean, AEW are still running, but gonna they've pre-taped everything up until May, I believe, so far the middle of May. It's not as if you can get out to Japan currently because obviously all the travel's down, and the indie scenes in America aren't operating at the minute, and B, even when this is finished, the indie development scene is going to be absolutely in tatters because all these promotions have made no money for months. They're not going to be able to do anything. So it's a bad time to be releasing your wrestlers. And you might argue, could the WWE not have kept them on for another month at least, just to kind of maybe even 2 more months? Just they've definitely got the money in reserves. They could afford to pay these guys, especially when you look at the fact they spent 12 million is what got paid to Tyson Fury to wrestle a 5 minute shitty match in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, and obviously there's no secret about the amount of part timers you see around WrestleMania
Yeah,
time. Goldberg,
got
obviously.
Goldberg got 4 million for his match at Saudi Arabia and his match at WrestleMania, which must be a combined total of like 8 minutes of in ring work, and he got 4 million for that. That could have covered their superstars' wages for a month.
Yeah, and the one that surprises me with it is obviously, I mean, some of them. I mean, like the OC. I mean, they're obviously not like a. I mean, at least the way they've been booked, they're not a can't speak title contending team at the moment. But I mean, like what 2 years ago they were apparently the best tag team in the world, and then obviously they were heavily involved in the whole AJ Styles Undertaker angle and stuff. And it's just been quite surprising to see because obviously, like there are certain people as well, like Sarah Logan. I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of her as a wrestler, but she was in the Elimination Chamber matches. She was in the main event not like 2 months ago. There's some people that have just been around for a while, or they've been used quite prominently in certain angles. I mean, Drake Maverick really awkwardly got released, and is if you watch NXT, he's competing for the vacant. He's currently competing for the vacant cruiserweight title, which is a
Yeah,
little
he's
bit
still
awkward.
got three
Yeah,
matches to go because they're doing it as a group stage as well. So it's not even like you
yeah.
lose and you're eliminated. He's got 3 matches to go. I mean, yeah, looking through the list, to be fair, as you said, minus a few names, they're not surprising as such. Like a lot of the people are people that were on the lower end of the roster. In that sense, it makes sense. The revival have been asking to go for ages, and
Hmm.
it seems almost destined that they're going to go to AEW. They've already had Twitter exchanges with AEW, and they're like doing "Hey Cody," like wave emojis and stuff like
Well,
that.
I never actually realised this until quite recently. So on like being the elite, whatever it's called, there's like a long running joke where Cody just runs around shouting "fuck the revival" at stuff, and this has been going on now for a couple of years. So obviously, it's been no secret the revival have had sort of qualms with the WWE for a couple of years. I mean, I think yeah, they just sort of came up to the main roster 4 years ago, and yeah, they've had a couple of injuries and stuff, but they've really been under. I mean, they've even won titles, and you just forget they win titles. They were just such a blip on the radar in the way they've been used. And yeah, there's this long running joke with apparently on being the elite where Cody Rhodes just insults the revival all the time. So you've pretty much just written a storyline for them to join right then, there and then.
Oh
So
yeah,
like,
straight away.
it's definitely not an. It's definitely a when, not if, for the revival.
They even teased that with Randy Orton when his contract was running out. He and Revivals was running out. They teased that they would go as a threesome, and they were tweeting like hashtag elite and stuff on there. It turns out Orton was just using that to barter for a better contract with the WWE, but the revival have been linked to AEW for so long, and I think everybody wants to see the revival versus the Young Bucks. So I imagine they will be fine. I think they will go straight there, and they will almost slot in for the next lot of tapings if their contract allows it. Um, you, you look at some of the other people on the list. I mean, I imagine you spoke about the OC. Uh, I know some of their old Bullet Club friends are in AEW, but I don't see them going there. To be honest, I think it's more likely they might go to Japan.
Yeah, there's a lot of them in New Japan still as well. Obviously, the Bullet Club obviously still exists in New Japan. So yeah, I mean they will be fine for work. It's just a bit of an odd one really, because obviously they kind of very shortly after AJ Styles came over, they came over. I think it was post. They were a post Mania hall, weren't they? After Styles joined in the January.
I believe they signed at roughly the same time. There might have been a few weeks in it, but they arrived on the main roster, yeah, after Mania.
But yeah, it's just obviously there's certain ones as well. You look down the list here, there are certain people where you said it makes sense. Like, I mean, No Way Jose doesn't really get used. I forgot about the colons completely. Actually, that's not true. Randomly the other day, remembered the Shining Stars because basically their gimmick was they just tried to sell timeshares in in their home country, and I was just like, this is so bad. But they did have a banging theme, but equally it was more like a, oh god, yeah, those guys. So yeah, I thought they were still on the roster, to be honest with you. But then there are certain people on there, so like, um, I mean, there's ones where it's just a waste. Like, so EC3 is the big one that jumps out for me.
EC3, I was just staring at. I was going to mention if you didn't.
So good. Like when he was amazing in TNA. He obviously came to NXT and he was great in NXT as well. Even he was underused 'cause obviously he got injured. Then he got called up to the main roster like straight away, and then just got
Far too quickly, yeah. He could have easily had a run as an NXT champion, I feel. Yeah, I feel like he should still have been down there. In the same way, I thought they pulled Ricochet up too soon, but he kind of his ring style, I think, instantly makes fans like him. Where as EC3 is all about the character, so if you're not going to give him any time to go on the mic in front of the crowd, it's not going to work. And I can't think he cut any promos ever on the main roster, so it was never going to work there for him.
it's weird as well because obviously like EC3 kind of falls under the traditional Vince McMahon esque build of a wrestler as well. Like Vince McMahon would rather go with these big hench blokes, and EC3 is huge. Like but he actually has, unlike people like Roman Reigns, who is also fills that Vince criteria, he actually has a character. He can actually cut a really good promo. He's actually really funny. He's pretty quick witted, and he's yeah. Like, I think it's just the way. I mean, on him getting announced he was getting cut, he released some like promo video on his social media. So again, I feel like he'll get swiped up pretty quickly. Maybe
To be
not.
fair, I could
Maybe
see
not.
him go into AEW because
Yeah,
he's got a similar character to MJF, and I wonder if you could weave him in there. And the only other person I wonder out of everyone else that could go to AEW, I mean, I should state, like AEW have been very clear in the past, they don't want to become TNA in the sense that every single person that ever leaves the WWE ended up there, and like TNA was so bad for that at one point. Like I think really Christian was the first to go over there, and then it was like Kurt Angle, Booker T came over, Scott Steiner came
like
over in his
Ric
run with
Flair and
WWE
that whatever,
finished.
didn't they? Like
Yeah, Ric Flair, Rhino, like loads of people just kept coming over, and it got a bit weird, especially because every single person that came over won the title because that was almost like part of their deal. Was like, oh, we'll make you a main eventer over here, but I could see EC3 potentially working out over there. And the only other one I'm slightly curious about is if Rowan, because he also got released, and I wonder if he could go over there based on the fact that Luke Harper is there. But the other side of it is, do they want to keep those two separate? They've always just been thrust together because there's these two big bearded men, and now they have a chance to kind of show what they can do individually, and they are both very skilled in the ring. So that's the only thing I'm wondering if maybe they would want to go. Let's keep it apart.
But yeah, like it's just, I mean, apart from Rusev, the other one that really upsets me as a cut is Zack Ryder. I always feel really bad for Zack Ryder because, like, obviously he kind of, unlike pretty much anyone that wasn't from the independent circuit, he made himself like originally way, way, way back when he did like Long Island IC, all that stuff. Podcast or not podcast? It was a YouTube channel, wasn't it?
Yeah, I loved it. I think I watched the first 100 episodes as they were coming out. Like it was the best thing I'd ever seen.
And then like I mean, it's a bit cheesy, but everyone loves the woo 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 chant. And like, and then but he and so I think someone, I can't remember who it was. It was actually another wrestler, but I can't remember who tweeted it. They basically put something like, "Oh, really hurts the Zack Ryder because like he's literally done every single thing that the company asked him to do over the years, like every gimmick, every character, every team, everything they did, and they still just kind of did nothing with him. And he's actually a really talented bloke. I mean, like that pop when he won. I mean, obviously there's that sense everyone loving the fact that it wasn't expected. There's that WrestleMania 32 one in Dallas when he wins the Intercontinental title in the ladder
Yeah,
match,
it's
and like
first two.
everyone just
Yeah,
goes mental. That was like one of my favorite things I've seen at WrestleMania. It was just brilliant because it just wasn't supposed to happen. In fact, he won. Didn't they win the tag titles last year? WrestleMania last year, him and Hawkins, didn't they? It's like their first win ever, or Hawkins' first win was
yeah.
they
Was it
won
on
the
a
tag titles against
pre-show?
the Revival. It was against the yeah, it was. It was against the Revival on a pre-show. It was actually a really good match, but that perfectly ties up the Revival.
Here's the thing I find really interesting with with them going, and in by them I mean Ryder and Hawkins, is like, don't get me wrong, they weren't doing well, and yeah, I get that. I loved the Long Island IC gimmick when it first came along because of his YouTube show, and there was a point where it was red hot when he made himself the internet champion, and like Hugh Jackman was there that time and stuff, and then he did win the I won the US championship, didn't he actually?
Yeah.
But yes, it had grown stale, but again, they kept giving him terrible gimmicks, and he kept going for them all. And for that, I feel sorry for him because as much as it didn't work out, he also wasn't booked well. But other people haven't been booked well, and they lost their jobs. That being said, so we're planning to very soon do another draft special. So we've done one in the past when we were under the Bearded Bros name. So we're going to do one again now with the current roster. And so to prepare for that, I had to make a list of everyone on the website who's currently contracted to the WWE. And the Singh brothers are still contracted to the WWE.
When was the last
Now,
time they appeared? Like,
I would much rather see Hawkins and Ryder on a card than I would the Singh brothers.
yeah, but they're not really a proper tag team, though, aren't they? They're like they just sort of turn up and help um, Jinder Mahal. But then I can't remember the last
But
time I saw Jinder Mahal. So
exactly, but this is the thing, which I'd rather lose the Singhs and Jinder Mahal than Rusev and Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins. There is some surprising people. Lars Sullivan survived the cut. I mean, I don't want this to turn into like, because I agree. I saw on Twitter some people would be like, they were saying things like, "Oh, I can't believe it. How did Baron Corbin survive the
oh yeah,
cut?
and he
This is
completely put them
ridiculous."
down, didn't he? Yeah.
And yeah, he obviously retired. And I'm not saying I want people to lose their jobs. I'm just saying I'm a bit surprised in terms of the fact that so the Sings have not been used. Lars Sullivan, since he's been called up to the main roster, has been absolutely covered in controversy.
But he's
His
injured
comments
as
he
well,
was
though, isn't he?
making.
Currently, yeah, like he's
He is
still
injured,
injured.
but even like he made those horrible comments on those forums and whatnot. That he would have been. It would have made sense in that vein that you could have almost been like, well, we need to lose some people, and you've brought a lot of negative press for what you said. It's just a bit surprising when you look through. You saw some of the people who's like Jason Jordan is still technically on the roster. I feel like that's more because he's got an injury, and I think they're honouring his contract.
Yeah, I mean, it might be a similar thing with Lars Sullivan, to be fair, as well. Like, because I mean, he was tipped for he's tipped to have a match with Cena, wasn't he? At WrestleMania last year, either last year or the year
Which
before.
no one wanted.
But it was tips to happen. Like, so they obviously had big things for him, and then he had like a panic attack, didn't he? And then he like tore like a muscle in his leg or something like that. I can't remember. So like, there's obviously still some big plan for him somewhere. But yeah, I mean, some of them. I mean, Kurt Angle. I mean, you get that one because I mean, he's technically right. He was back. He was working as a producer, really, wasn't he? More than anything. Slash, like occasionally, he would just turn up and do something on the mic. But yeah, I mean, a certain one like Heath Slater again, like that's a bit of a obviously I love Heath Slater. It also kills the 3MB dream for now of all of them at one point holding the title. But at the same time, like I mean, I think you said quite a long time ago in when we did possibly we did our last draft actually about stressing the importance of like the mid card, and as much as people will be there like, oh, so what for getting rid of this person? They're just a jobber. Then you actually need them. They're like really really important to have jobbers and a good mid card because otherwise you actually end up with what the WWE has now.
Which is top heavy, and yeah, you don't want it to be
Yeah,
top
that's
heavy.
the problem now. You look at so many people that either should have a title and they never have, or they've had too many, well, not too many, but they've had loads of title opportunities and they probably shouldn't have because they've just got this really sort of distorted, top heavy system at the moment. I mean, the fact that I mean, Braun Strowman obviously is the classic example of this, that he's should have been the champion like 2 or 3 years ago. Was in his when he was in
Yeah,
his like red hot stage, and then now he's got it, and yeah, it's great he's got it, but equally you are kind of just sort of like it's not as special now because this should have just happened years ago.
I think another one that strikes out to me from the list is not that their return on the main roster was any form of success, but with the Canellises or the Bennetts of their real life, it they have just had, a, I think it's their second kid.
Yeah,
I think 9 weeks ago, and then both of them have just been made unemployed, and it's it's little things like that which kind of stings because, as we're saying, it's not an easy time for a wrestler to go out and get work because the indie promotions are all dead. Mike Bennett would go out and get work straight away on the indie scenes; he'd be fine, but he's not going to be able to do that for a while, and it's things like that which it's a little bit ruthless for better, you know, with lack of
Yeah,
another
as
word.
you said as well, that they said they could easily hold on to people for a couple more months. And like, yeah, I mean, the thing that I think that's mental with it as well though is they haven't got any. Like they obviously could. There's a lot of rumors they're going to take a hiatus. They haven't got any like house shows or anything like that to do at the moment. So they've purely just got televised matches, and this actually could have been a really really good opportunity to maybe look at some of these people you don't use that much, like Zack Ryder or Mike Kanellis when he comes back from seemingly paternity leave. I'm guessing, or people like that, and you could be like, how can we wedge these guys in? Now, because actually we've got loads of time. I mean, you saw like Tamina's in a women's title match now, which is something I never thought I'd ever say in a sentence. But that's happened. So that's an example where they've looked at someone and gone, actually, we could chuck them in somewhere. And yeah, I just think this was the time to do it. You know, you got a time you can give people like, for example, like Seth Rollins. Who, don't get me wrong, I love Seth Rollins. I hate this little like burn it down thing, but I love Seth Rollins. But he's knackered himself. He's so like battered as a person at the moment. Like, this would be a great time to give someone like him the time off, especially if you've got everything with Becky Lynch as well, and then give someone like EC3 a chance to go and do something. This would have been the perfect time, but they've just kind of, yeah, you said they've kind of been a bit ruthless, really.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely there was something they could have tried to work out, and yeah, it just. I mean, on the subject of Tamina in a SmackDown Women's Title match, I agree with you. This is shocking. It's like they've thought, smooth transition over to Money in the Bank here, but it's almost like they thought to themselves. I almost feel like the logic is, and this is what I was speculating at work today with someone, that obviously not everybody is happy competing at the minute. So already you're on a somewhat of a reduced roster. Then you've got to do the women's Money in the Bank. So it looks. I think there's going to be 8 people in it,
6 or 8, I can't remember
six
exactly.
or eight. So you need 6 to 8, good women in that match. You're not going to be able to use Bailey, obviously, because she's already a champion, and you're not going to be able to use Becky because she's a champion, and you're not going to be able to use Charlotte because she's now the NXT champion. So I feel like they almost just thought, oh, do you know what? Let's just put Tamina in this women's title match, and that frees up other people to be in the Money in the Bank. And then people started to go, oh, but there's an issue. Tamina is terrible, and I don't think anyone's ever seen her win a match ever. So then they had to be like, oh, yeah, okay, what we'll do is we'll just have her win a match randomly on SmackDown, change her entrance music, and everyone will forget that she's absolute trash. But yes, strange as how it seems as though the wrestling world saw that happen and have all just en masse gone, what? Like it very much reminds me of when Jinder won the world title,
Yeah, but, I mean, but you can at least with the Jinder one, there's that argument where they were trying to break into India, wasn't it? Even though he's not in
which
from
a
India.
hundred percent was the reason. Like as much as they kept coming out and saying that wasn't why they were doing it, everybody knows that's why they were doing it. It was a terrible experiment. It was pain. Everything about that period was painful.
But then, as you were saying though, on that vein as well, though, it is. I think it does. I think it actually opens a pretty interesting window of opportunity. This whole Tamina thing, because as you said, she doesn't have to win, and it's possibly, well, you have the thing here now where, so I've got the Money in the Bank's current card up, and as you can imagine, it's pretty empty. There's 7 people in the women's Money in the Bank ladder match now. So you've got Asuka, Shayna Baszler, Nia Jax, Dana Brooke, Lacey Evans. Oh, they got, sorry, 6 people. Sorry, Lacey Evans or Sasha Banks, and then someone else to be determined. So that's like, I mean, all of them, bar Dana Brooke, really are all main event potential women. So what actually, I
Yeah,
think
it's a
it
very
does it
stacked
does make
match.
it makes a, and I think you can make some pretty interesting arguments for all of them to win, which I think it works out well. So it means you have this thing with Tamina, and then, well, this is the thing that we don't know obviously now, because obviously it's not uncommon nowadays for a cash in to happen on the same night. But the other big news that was announced in regards to the Money in the Bank smooth transition is that it's taking a different theme this year, in that it's taking place in the global headquarters in Connecticut.
Yeah, so they're starting on the ground floor, and then the titles are hanging over the roof of the building, and they need to get to the roof and then climb a ladder and then unhook the belts.
But I just don't understand how it's going to work. I mean, I'm all open for it because I give them all of the credit for coming up with something pretty inventive in this time. But I just don't understand how it's going to work. Like, do they all just like get individual transport to the office and then just like meet in reception and then just start fighting? Like, what happens? And like, there's like climb a ladder at the top of the building and still climb it or something? Or
Yeah, I'm curious to see what it's hanging off. I mean, I've seen a picture that was kind of leaked, and there seems to be like a scaffolding over the top of the roof. So I'm guessing it's hanging off that. But it definitely seems weird. I mean, you can imagine. Firstly, you had to get everyone to travel to Stamford, which is I'm pretty sure travel shouldn't be happening currently, but okay. And then imagine if it was a really windy day. Like you're on top of a ladder on top of a roof of a giant building. Like you're not going to be wanting to do
or
that. You
if it's
could
like
blow off.
raining
And
or
then,
something, yeah, and you're just like,
yeah.
oh, I'll stay inside for this one, guy.
What if
And
just a
yeah,
bird just came and took the belts and just went off? I mean, I know they're heavy, but it could
yeah,
be a
no,
big bird that takes
that's
it.
it. Yeah, it's like, yeah, it's just the fact that, like, as I mean, you pointed out when this got announced, we had a very interesting sort of, like, I guess, there's so many questions to ask about this event. But like, yeah, can't you just like take the lift like all the way to the top, like,
Yeah, the lift
or,
is my idea. I definitely would just get in the lift and
or
then
like,
just
you know,
go all the way.
so like, something like a helicopter or something that just turn up in. I mean, I don't know who you've got in the match. Like maybe like Shayna Baszler or someone just turns up in a helicopter, like laughing, like ha ha ha, and then just wins it. That would be amazing. But yeah, it's a bit of a surprise in a way. I think the thing that would just surprise me with this match is obviously Dana Brooke being in it, beating. I've no problem with her being in it, but obviously she beat Naomi. And Naomi kind of seems to be the she seems, if not Sasha Banks, it would be her, would be the next obvious choice for a title. Especially when she came back at the Royal Rumble to a massive pop, and she's not even going to be in the event as it stands anyway, unless something happens. But like, and you've got someone like Tamina, who I mean, obviously we said this wasn't going to turn into this like this person thing, but I mean, so if you had Naomi versus Bailey as the women's title match, you'd kind of be like, oh, this makes sense in a way, because it leaves open the Sasha Banks angle for the Money in the Bank, and then also I feel like you need someone like actually you could have Tamina in the Money in the Bank match, and it would almost make more sense because then you'd have like her and Nia Jax as like the token powerhouses you always have in ladder matches that just batter everyone with ladders. And then yeah, it just makes I'm just a bit confused with it, but I mean
Yeah,
maybe it's a who can get to Connecticut thing. Maybe I don't know.
that's what I
Maybe
was wondering. That could be
uh,
it. That Naomi wasn't willing to go to Connecticut, or I mean, one thing I kind of speculated at with the Tamina match could be, and it does link to the Money in the Banks because we said like if they're pretending it's live, you're not going to have a cash in on the same night unless they literally finish the match and then you watch them walk out of the building into a jet. And this is the first match of the night. Maybe then by the end of the night you can
it
get a cash
might
in.
turn up. It has to be like a jet, like
Yeah,
it's a long way Connecticut to Florida. It's a really long
I'd
way.
almost in that vein though rather they said this happened yesterday to tease the fact that there could be a cash in because one thing I've kind of speculated you could have done is actually have Tamina could have almost could win as such like and then Bailey kind of beats her down afterwards, and then Sasha Banks, fresh off winning the Money in the Bank, comes down and cashes in and wins the belt, not from Bailey, but then she's all happy. She's like, oh, but it's fine because one of us still has the belt, and then their dynamic changes as a pair because all of a sudden Banks is the champion and Bailey's the kind of sidekick one, but she's obviously bitter about it, and there was an angle there you could have gone down, but yeah, you can't. There's no way you're going to be able to cash in. It's going to be so weird. Um, and the match itself is just going to be baffling in terms of. The other thing is there are two of them on the night, so
That's what I love. Yeah, like the office is just going to get trashed up.
Well, they are planning on moving headquarters. I know they've delayed it now because of all the changes that have happened because of the coronavirus. They mentioned, as well as the directors have took pay cuts. They're letting go of 40% of the staff, and their planned move away from the headquarters has been delayed. I almost wonder if this was their way of demolishing some of the headquarters. They just were like, "Well, smash down some walls. That's fine. We'll get some wrestlers to do it during the Money in the Bank match. Clear out this office. That's right. Yeah, we've got loads of equipment. We'll just tip it all over."
There are so many things I'm hoping to happen in this match as well. Like, someone's going to get thrown from one floor down below. That's going to happen at one point. Or like someone like Rey Mysterio, who could be in the men's match, we don't know yet, or someone like a high flying person will like jump off a barricade onto the floor below or something like that. But like I just having this really weird image of people just like fighting over desks, and then there's like someone from like accounting in the back just sat at their desk like, oh, what the fuck, what's going on, or like someone at reception, or like what, it's just going to be really weird. And then like it's the idea as well that like all these women have these, or men, whichever one goes first, has this match, and then they awkwardly all just get up and walk out. And then there's like six blokes just stood outside, like, "Yeah, ready to go, lads? Yeah, let's go." And they just run in and start having a fight themselves. I just don't really. Yeah, I've got so many questions.
And you've got to find different ways up the building as well, because you can't have this two matches that are identical. So if there's one staircase that goes up, it'll be pretty dull to see that twice. So it's going to be interesting to see how they do inventive ways of going up through the building. And I kind of agree with you in terms of there are some things I'm really looking forward to seeing. I can almost guarantee at some point we're going to go into the toilets, because I just feel like that's something they're going to do, and they're going to send one of the groups into the toilets and trash that place.
Yeah, someone will get like dunked or something. They'll do some stupid thing like that.
Yeah, and like as much as people should be working from home and social distancing, there's got to be some other random workers, or maybe you'll have like a couple making out somewhere and they're getting caught or some stuff like that. Like I can imagine that sort of vibe going down. The one thing I really hope is that this match isn't produced by Edge and Randy Orton, and it's just 40 minutes
Oh,
each match
so
of just
bad.
hitting heads against various surfaces while the very intense referee screams at you.
The other thing that I kind of love in a way about this match, would be quite funny if they did it, is that, I mean, they made this point last year with Brock Lesnar, didn't they? Where it is a no disqualification match. Was it last year? It was last year, yeah. Where it's a no disqualification match. So in theory, anyone could actually come down and grab it. And up to now, no one's fought to do it. Um, and there's that thing where, like, I just love it now. I can just see it, because I can see it being this weirdly dramatized thing, like they did with the sort of filmed matches last at WrestleMania, the graveyard match, or probably boneyard match and whatnot. Where like I can just have this really weird image where like someone like Daniel Bryan or someone will get to the top and they'll run out on the roof, and then there's just this like hooded figure stood on the roof, like waiting, like laughing, and it's just some really cheesy like dun 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 dun, and it's like Brock Lesnar or someone like that. Just stood there waiting on the roof. I can just see them doing something stupid like that, or they'll have like, I'm trying to look at the who's got like a storyline you could chuck in there. Maybe like Baszler gets to the top and Ronda Rousey's just there, like haha. Like, because they normally use these to advance some sort of storyline as well, don't they? So like you can have anyone could just turn up, yeah. Like it's when Vince has both the women's and the men's, and he's just stood there like ha ha
But
ha
then
ha.
wasn't Brock's one actually because Sami Zayn got attacked, didn't he, backstage? And everyone thought Braun Strowman had done it because he just lost his position to Sami Zayn. Because they found him hanging upside down, didn't they? And then they said, oh, they sent Braun home. They said Sammy couldn't compete, so there would be an eighth man, but no one said who it was going to be. And then Lesnar turned out to be the eighth man, but he just came down late.
Oh, actually, yeah, no, you are right. Yeah, I mean, in theory, yeah, anyone. I mean, bloody, what's his name? Bloody James Ellsworth won it. Technically, didn't he? He won the women's
Yeah, I
one
mean,
and just
he
gave
gifted it
to.
to Carmella because what a guy. But yeah, you're all right there. But yeah, there's just so many different questions that come out about this. It's just whoever pitched it is either a genius or an idiot, because it's either going to be incredible or terrible. I don't think this isn't going to be the match where people go, yeah, it was all right. It's either going to be people are coming out of it like this is the best thing they've ever done, or they, you know what, they did all right with the Boneyard match, and they've ballsed it up now. They've kind of gone too far, so it's going to go
But I
one way
think,
or the other.
yeah, like I think the boneyard match was. I mean, it was great in its own way. It's probably the best way to describe it. And then the Firefly Funhouse match was equally awesome. Um, but then I feel like if you had both of them on the same night, you may have been a bit like, oh god, by the end of it. And that's the thing. That's the problem. I think they worked quite well because they were somewhat novel in that sense to each night. Meanwhile, I think if you had two of the exact, as you said, they need to do some kind of inventive way of making them both. It's like when they have like two chamber matches or sometimes three chamber matches in the same night. Like you got to come up with different spots for each one. Otherwise, it's just going to be really boring. And I guess the opportunities are endless for this one because you said you could have just some guy in a lift. You could have like God knows what. I don't even know how many floors the building is. I mean, I'm sure we'll find out.
I like the idea of just like it happens to be some window cleaners at the time of the match, so you can just get in their little thing, like their little lift, and that just carries you straight up the outside.
There's going to be some like crappy thing, like a lift or like a misplaced ladder or something. Well, the one thing I'm looking forward to actually with this is I only know this because obviously this is what lockdown has got you like, just watching weird videos on YouTube. And quite recently, Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae went to the headquarters and had like a tour of the headquarters. And one thing I hope they do is they have a warehouse somewhere of every single like prop they've ever used ever. So with like all the even like the tiny ladders from like the WLC match, and like all the weird old school like like SmackDown Fist, for example, which obviously made an appearance at WrestleMania, and all these weird stuff they've had from over the years. And there's like a room just full of merch and stuff as well. And it's like if they just use those two, it could be amazing. Like because in theory you could just have like six men or women just running around the building, all with like ladders or these weird gimmicky weapons. And yeah, it could be amazing. Like I want it to go on for like ever and be amazing, like some half an hour, 40-minute long, just ridiculous match. It has to be something good like that.
I mean, I would say even longer. I'd almost rather you did it across 2 nights, and this was the only match on each night, and it's like having the Raid basically, or Dread, just WWE's version of it. It could be amazing.
Oh, you need, yeah, like have those NXT people on each floor they have to defeat every time they go up or something. Like
Yeah,
all the people they lock, all the people they cut are on
all
each
the people
floor.
they cut. Yeah,
They have to defeat
waiting inside.
But yeah, I mean, it could be good. I mean, looking at the rest of the event, obviously, there's still a lot to. I mean, it's what free on the day of recording. It's 3 Sundays away, so we've got a while yet to sort of book it all. But I mean, at the moment, you've got Bailey and Tamina, which is interesting booking, and then obviously Braun Strowman and Bray Wyatt as well. Presumably, it's going to be Bray Wyatt the Fiends. It's not been necessarily confirmed that it's the Fiends because obviously he came with the Miz that one time, didn't he? But I think that's a bit of a weird match as well, though, because it almost seems like, I mean, obviously not to jump the gun with predictions, but it almost seems too early. A lot of people have said this. It's almost too early for this match. Like it makes sense, but equally, you've just had the Fiend beat John Cena. Well,
Yeah,
beat John Cena in quotation marks. And like you sort of got to think like how he has to sort of win this one, the Fiend, because the Goldberg loss kind of hurt him, kind of definitely hurt him. So he redeemed himself with the Cena thing, and then like, but Strowman's only just won the title, and it has been years in the making. So it's a bit of a weird one to see. I'm not really sure how they're going to get around this one. Almost actually, this would actually, funnily enough, be the perfect match to be ruined by someone cashing in funnily enough, or the cash in goes wrong or something like that. But this would be the perfect one because it saves face of both people. But obviously we've got weeks to. I mean, obviously got new SmackDown champion, tag team champions as well as of last week. So no doubt that will probably be involved in something. But yeah, it's shaping up to be a pretty interesting event, for lack of a better word. Interesting, like
it, yeah, it's definitely the Braun Bray thing is weird in the sense of it, I can't. Surely Strowman can't lose the belt at its first defense, not again. Like after what happened with Intercontinental Championship, if that happens, he is truly done. Like they will never be able to put this belt on him again because he will just be so weak. Um, but equally, do you have the Fiend lose 2 out of 3 pay-per-views, and equally he'll then look weak. Yeah, it's a lose lose for them in that vein. You almost need someone to cash in to interfere in the match, but because of the taped match, you might not be able to do that. So it's a strange one. Yeah, obviously the cards will fill out, and we'll see kind of what happens. The women's one actually looks relatively stacked in terms of their Money in the Bank match. The men's one, not as much with the people who've been put into the qualifiers, but we'll see who gets through. And then yeah, that's kind of the situation we're at the minute. It's all a lot of speculation. It's a lot of what ifs. No one knows what these matches are going to look like, but they will either be amazing or terrible, as we've kind of said.
Yeah, there's no in between. There'll be one or the other.
One or the other. But if you've been listening, feel free to get in touch with us on social media and let us know what you think the matches will be like, or any funny questions you want speculated over. Like, for example, will there be other people working? Will you are yeah. Will you be able to just get in the lift, or the lift's going to be disabled? Do you actually have to take the stairs the whole way up? Like, what's going to actually happen? We're available on Twitter at uselessagpod, or individually, I'm at Citadel James.
I'm at Henry Rogers 94.
And thank you very much for tuning in to yet another Useless Aggression podcast.